We're not including them. As well, and my approach to that was, this is not a, excuse me one minute. This is not a separatist operation. We're not trying to become an island of our own. But in order for us to resolve some issues within our community, we must sit down and have a conversation. Very simple. Talk, discuss things. Let the business community tell us, the black business community that the little bit we do have, explain to us where we need to go. I asked Commissioner Hodges to come because education in our community is nil. We no longer even go to the Board of Education meetings. We're more political than anything else. And that's not a bad thing to be political, but there is a vast number of issues that affect our community that politics will not resolve. The NAACP, in order for this to come off, they're essential to a conference. We have to start understanding that our established organizations that have a history of good work must be involved when we are doing these types of things. Matt McCoy just came in, as Bill McCoy's son. We have decided that it cannot be the same thing over and over again. So we're asking young and old to come together and participate in this conversation, because we as older leaders don't have all the answers. Times have changed. Times have changed. Out of this conference, we're hoping that Project Pass the Torch can be developed, where we start passing the torch to our younger folks, giving them the tools to be able to lead when we're no longer able to. I know I'm getting very tired. I don't know about the rest of you guys. And it's time that new young blood is brought in and we can advise them, help them, and shape them to increase the positivity of our community. On another note, we were looking at the first venue for the mini conference. And Della Fisher came up with an idea, and I want everybody's opinion on it, to do the mini conference at school number 6 auditorium. The worst school in the district is school 6, and I'm an alumni. And I know many of you may be alumni from school 6. I think that sends a positive message, because the majority of the children there are African American, Jamaican, black children. We need to focus on how do we get our parents involved and committed to education once more. We have to find out methods and come up with strategies to get messages out to our community. The majority of the time, everything's on Facebook, and everybody doesn't use Facebook. So we don't know if Reverend Clayton's having something, and we need to come and support it. We don't know a lot of times when Dr. Hodges is trying to get parents to the Board of Education because the issues that are coming about concern our children. We don't know when the young folks are doing something and they need our support. So we have no communication. I'm hoping that the NAACP takes a leading role in developing this conference. The 100 black women who are not able to be here today because I believe they're in Atlantic City on a trip. Everlasting Life is represented by Reverend Henry. You're the Silk City Gents. They're here. We have a former chief from the Sheriff's Department. We have a businessman, Mr. Linton Gaines. We have Charlotte Shepperson, who is the founder of Women and Mothers and Women Against Violence. There have been various various groups that have come in on these meetings, and we're developing a matrix for something we hope will be great. A lady asked me the other night, she says, why would I support a black business? And I looked at it, I was a little shocked. I said, you support every other business. Well, we don't have any business. Whose fault is that? You know, I have a running battle and debate with bodega owners who will not hire us, but will they're in the middle of our community. And an old wise man from the African American community said to me, stop worrying about them hiring us. Open some stores and hire yourself. Stop worrying about other people and what they're doing, and do something within your community that will change the outlook for your community. So that's what we're here for today. I want to take this opportunity to allow us to have a conversation. And I want to start what I believe is two of the youngest people in the room. Okay? Three of the youngest people in the room. What can we do to assist you in developing leadership so we can change our condition? Who wants to start? Matt McCoy?
Good evening, sir. Mr. Chairman.
I stand on up.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I apologize for my tardiness. I was actually at a meeting with the Brotherhood group. We all are well aware of the circumstances and the conditions that's put in our community. And I believe, as Mr. Rucker said, we're all making conscious efforts to bring about change, but it's not connected. It's not connected. And as you can see, I went to the Dominican parade. I know a few of the people here was there. And I highlight that because they have somehow formed a network where everybody gets contacted. Whether you're great-grandma or the 10-year-old that's riding around on his scooter, everybody knows that the Dominican parade's on this date, and flags and everything's there, and people say, oh, they made a mess of the city, and they did this, they did that, but to show, when you see it for yourself, the pride and the support and the outpour, it shapes a community. With that said, I believe that we need commitment. I think that the city of Paterson needs commitment. We need to find a way to show the youth that we're committed. They see us doing things and they see us involved, but I feel like there's a lack of commitment where after the cameras go off, after the Facebook posts are posted, who's there? After the big council meeting, who's there on a day-to-day basis impacting the lives of these youth? When I was growing up, I had Mike Walker. He's no longer here, God rest his soul. I had Coach Bulldog. I had Mr. Tyson. I had a number of people involved in the community, and they were committed day in and day out. And you saw them, their presence was felt. And I think that along with grassroots, I think that along with the faith base and some of our elected officials, we got to come together as we are here today, show the commitment, and also find a way to just implement some things that are day to day. It's hard, it's going to be difficult, but we gotta make the decision to make those changes now. So I'm here in support, and I think we can do it.
Oh, my niece to give us some insight here. Yes, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marquisha Beckley. I'm from the city of Paterson. And I think that a huge issue that we have is a gap, a culture gap, where when my mom and my elders were being raised, they were raised in a culture of strength, a culture in never giving up the fight being becoming successful in life, living for something. And I think as the years have gone by, there's been a huge culture shift to where nowadays a lot of young kids, and it's a shame to say with the culture that we have as African Americans, a lot of young black kids don't know culture. They don't know our historical culture as African Americans. They sadly don't understand the American culture. All they see is a new group, a new culture coming in that's not theirs, and they don't know how to react. Perfect example, in the Latinos community, they are a united culture. Regardless if you're Puerto Rican, Dominican, Colombian, Mexican, they're united. We were once united, but over the years, we've come apart. And now, the effects, the excuses, they trickle down from our elected officials. We blame them. As a community, we blame the faith base, but we can't constantly rely on other people to rebuild our culture when we have to take the initiative to do it together. And I think that's the most important thing, besides meeting and discussing with our elected officials, with our local law enforcement, with community members. We need to reinstate that culture that we once had back with your Dr. Martin Luther King, your Rosa Parks. We need to rebuild that culture, because until we rebuild that culture, that strong African-American based culture, we're going to be at the same starting place every time. And we're going to continue to lose kids every time, and our community is going to continue to fall apart until we rebuild the culture we once had. And it doesn't sound like something that's important, but if you talk to your older family members and you talk to your cousins and you hear the stories of how things used to be and you think about how things are, it's a huge difference. That's it.
Thank you. Who's this young lady sitting next to you, Madam McCoy?
Actually, high school friend, and we met up, we reunited at a funeral at Grace Chapel last Saturday. So she said that she wanted to get involved and she wanted to be on the front line. So
I'd like to hear from you. What do you think we need to do? Let me rephrase this question. Those of us that are older and have been going through this and doing this for some time, and actually, I'm really ashamed to say that we've dropped the ball. How do we engage your age group? How do we engage your age group? What do we need to do to assist you in growth and community pride? Can you answer that question for me?
Yes. Hello everyone, my name is Tanisha Davis. I'm actually an LPN at St. Mary's Hospital, and I have a 6-year-old, and I want to be active in my community. And I think that one way she is absolutely right. We did fell apart as a black community. A lot of us do not know our roots. And that's one way that we can probably fix things, is teaching our youth about our roots. Because a lot of them don't know about our history, about slavery, how this country was built upon black people, African Americans as ourselves. So that's one way that we can start by, is communicating with our youth, is teaching them. If I had to sit down and teach someone, I will actually do it. I do that every day. As a nurse, I teach someone something new every single day. Another way is through Facebook, but just like Matt said, when the posters go down, what happens? No one shows up. So that takes responsibility on ourselves, that we have to go out there and make them show up. That's the only way we can bring them in, is we make them show up. And I know that some people are going to be like, oh, I can't come, I have this to do, I have that to do. But it's always, if we have something to do every weekend with our youth, I think that they will actually show up, something fun, something excitement, bring excitement and education in the part of it too. That's how a lot of people learn. It's when fun and excitement and education is a part of something.
Let me ask you this question. What do you see as a young person, the older black leaders, what are we doing wrong? No, feel free to answer the question.
I'd like to tell you a short story. I dated a young man who I met his mother's in the 40s. And she didn't know anything she knew about slavery and stuff like that, but you know what she said to me? That's the past, it don't affect me now. It still affects me every day in my job, with my education, when I'm trying to go to school, it affects me every day. It's comments like that that shut us down. We don't have older people that's not educated on what had happened, or trying to forget what had happened, and it doesn't exist. It still exists. It's always gonna exist. Thank you.
Mr. Gilmore's come in, Mr. B, who else came in? Well, everybody knows that guy is. That's Earl Carr, another commissioner on the Board of Education. As you see, we all saying pretty much the same thing. Now,
That last question, is that open to the floor?
in 1 minute. What we're going to do is this, and what we've been doing in the various meetings. There will be a master meeting after the various groups, like we're doing now, come together, have our conversation to draft the matrix for the November, the third week of November meeting or conference that we're going to have. Then from that conference, we will develop the matrix for February, the third week, and purposely be in February because it's Black History Month. So when Mr. Nation comes back up, we'll be looking at the assignments and how we need to bring those about. Mr. Gilmore.
I just want to, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I apologize for being late. But I want to address that last question as you talked to the young lady in terms of our elders or those in the community that are not addressing or haven't addressed our situation that is today. Or would you, I don't know if that's the way you phrased it, but that's how I took it.
No, how I phrased it was, what do they believe we are, where we're lacking what we need to do from a youth perspective.
All right. Well, I'm still young. So I'm still young, so I'll address that too.
You're in a church. Well, go ahead.
I know we're supposed to be a little bit serious, but you have been young the last few years. Go ahead.
I'd like to say that we have not held our own accountable. We have let too many things go by, unsaid, unspoken, unchallenged. And it's time that we recognize that we, collectively, young and old, hold our folk accountable. You can't continue to think that things are going to get better by themselves. You can't continue to think that the past is the past and we're here in the future, in the present going forward, without knowing that the past has affected us and continues to affect us, being the descendants of slaves and still under the power of former slave masters' descendants as well. You know, it's not that long ago, you know, that slavery ended. We're still new in this country in terms of our level of empowerment, and we don't fight enough. We need a voice. We need to continue to raise that voice and challenge things. When people walk around like they're scared, what are you scared of? Somebody not gonna like you? What I'm saying is we have to become more vocal. We have to be more challenging, and it starts with challenging our own first. How are you gonna ask somebody else to do something for you if you're not asking your own to do for you? You're sitting in these positions of power and not doing anything. That's my problem. And I think that when you bring it out there and you talk about it, it's not a personal attack on anybody. It's the situation as it's presented. We have positions from which we can make a difference, and we're not doing that. Things need to be said and done on a daily basis.
Okay. And on that note, first of all, you can see that he's been reading my material. But on a serious note, I have found that a lot of times we ask our leaders to do certain things and we don't support them. Okay? Everyone in this room, the NAACP asks for new members every year. It's a struggle. When you have an establishment organization, you need to be part of it to make any change or have any effect. When you're talking about churches. Here, Reverend Cockenbell just walked in. My elder, by many years, adopted church. The first gathering we had, he opened his church. Now, Reverend Clayton's opening his church. We're going to try to take this to other churches because the backbone of the civil rights movement began in the church. What is more important, I think, than that is we have a complex black condition. We have Jamaicans, we have African American, we have Haitian in this city, and for too long, we've kept those groups separate from the conversation. And it's time that we stop doing that because the goal is the same, the problems are the same, the racism, the prejudice, the bigotry is the same, because when a bigot looks at us, they don't ask, listen, excuse me, Mr. Nation, or are you Jamaican? They don't do that. We need to have a conversation about, one, how do we begin? This problem is deep rooted. This is not something that began yesterday. We've been doing this for a while. When I was a kid, it was your duty, let me say it again, your duty to go to Board of Education meetings. It was your duty to go to City Council, and prior to that, the Board of Aldermen. We were forceful in that. But let's talk about civil rights for a minute. Everyone believes that the civil rights movement is over. Well, let's look at what's going on in the South now with the gerrymandering of voting rights. Let's look at our Congress that is trying to gut the Voters' Right Act of 64, 65. That everything trickles up. When I was a kid, we couldn't pass 10th Avenue. We couldn't go over to Union Avenue. Those parts of town was not for us. When we came to go to the park, we had to walk up Broadway. If you deviated off Broadway, you had a problem. Those things exist in a different manner today. And racism does not mean a white person all the time. Okay? We need to get that understood as well. That many people have gotten what they've got today off the backs of us. The right to vote, economic development, all of these things have come because of slavery, emancipation, and civil rights movements. And the young lady was right. We're not sharing the history any longer. I'm going to ask real quickly, Chief Lovey, to stand up for 1 minute. You have been involved in law enforcement for quite a while. I think we went to school together.
Right.
Okay? What do you see as, what causes the recidivation rate of, as far as inmates going into the county jail and going to prison out of our community? And what do we need to do to slow that down?
A lot of it is, just like the young lady said, it's a disconnect, because one of the things I've seen with the youth that's coming into the jail or coming to the courthouse, going to jail, that when they come in here, it seems like it's a reunion of their friends, you know? So they don't mind being in here. I mean, I've seen guys get sentenced 20 years, 25 years, and they stand there like with smiles on their face, like they don't care. And that's, to me, that I just can't get that. I don't understand where that comes from, you know? But they have no concern about life in itself. I mean, they don't care about their life, so if they don't care about theirs, then they definitely don't care about anybody else's, you know? No respect for their parents. I mean, I've seen these kids like step to their parents like it's nothing, you know? I mean, God forbid, coming up, you know, we would never challenge our parents and never even think about disrespecting them in any manner. So there is a disconnect. But again, I don't know if it's the fact that Just like you said, people want to forget the past. You can't forget your history. I mean, Georgia had the Holocaust. They'll never forget that.
Right.
They never forget it. They build off of that, you know? Because as long as you remember that, you keep that struggle going, you keep going. They don't want that to happen again. We seem to have forgot about it. Our kids just don't care about the past. They don't care about their future. But again, it's that family, I guess, that has to be in here. I don't know if it came from kids starting having children at such a young age, and parents and kids are like right there, and yeah, I really don't know. I don't even know what the problem is with that. I don't know how to stop that.
So that's a very deep conversation we need to have. Young lady, what is your name?
My name is Tanisha.
I'm tired of calling you young lady. All right, Tanisha.
I grew up in a very strict home. I grew up with my mother and father. And your parents play a very big role in your lives. And I was rewarded things. I was not given anything. I had to be rewarded, making honor roll, principal. Matt will tell you, my name was always on the board. I was a good student. I had a 3.7 average in high school. You know, we don't do that no more. We just give our kids, oh, Jordans, oh, Nike, oh, this, oh, that. We don't make them work hard no more for anything. And if not, they go out and they steal it because we don't teach them values. We forgot our values. We forgot our roots as our great-great-great-grandparents did. Because back then on the fields, they didn't have much. They had to make their own. You know, I learned these stories. I came from Woodville, Mississippi. I came a long way. I went to a segregated school at 8 years old. I didn't have no white students in my class. None at all. We went to 2 separate schools. And it's still segregation down there. I lived through that too. Well, some of y'all did too. You know, but we don't teach our children value anymore. And that's a really big thing that's going on.
Okay, young lady.
Yes, sir.
Of course you do. How you doing, sir?
I think it's safe to say, a lot of you may disagree, but truth hurts. We've become our biggest enemy. Point blank. Like, from the adults, you were asking earlier, what are we doing wrong? And you already addressed the issue. You have certain groups of African American adults who don't speak to others for whatever reason. I don't want to talk to that group. And it trickles down on us. Because now, due to the distant and lack of communication amongst our elders, and I'm not going to say we as me because my mother, like, I got whippings when I was little if I disrespected her. So that wasn't a problem in my household, but for other kids don't receive that. And now that we've become our biggest enemy, we're constantly going back and forth. So now the new generation, they have no respect. Not all of them, most of them. They don't need to respect their parents because they see their parents disrespecting other people. Because kids hear and see everything. And what they learn, the type of person they become, reflects the type of household that they live in and the type of community that they live in. Because I've lived on both sides of the city. Former councilman, current council person. 2 different types of people, 2 different types of community, 2 different cultures. Back in the day, if I disrespect my mom, any adult in this room, I was gonna get it. Nowadays, you can get a child up the street and they'll come in and curse, except for him, every single person in your house. And even with the churches, I hate to say this, but a lot of the African American churches in this city are not welcoming to everyone. And by everyone, I mean every type of African American. They're not welcoming. And when a person seeks that family, and they seek faith-based because they're here to seek faith-based, and they're rejected, you cut the ties of trust right then and there. And then when you put a group together and you say you need to trust faith-based, what about the people who already have? What do you say to them?
That's very interesting. I want my host here. One second.
I love my pastor.
I love him to look over his glasses when he's sitting on to lay out for us where you think that we we should be going with this first conversation that we're about to broach and lay out how the NAACP can be a strong force in this.
Can I do that later, because I'm listening right now?
Okay, I'll give you 5 or 10 more minutes. I'll see you. All right.
Let me just say this, man.
Okay, bro.
I think all of you in your comments are there. Part of our problem is that we forgot who we are and the heritage and the history of us as a people in this country. When you look at the evolution or the migration of us as a people, our people coming from the South and coming out of that Jim Crow era, coming out of the racial discrimination, I think the greatest desire and prayers for our parents and our grandparents' generation that we would have a better life, that we would get the education that we needed, because that's what would give us a better day. Most of us who were fortunate enough to go to college and to get some education, I think that the generational gap is that we didn't continue in the vein to encourage our children and our children's children. When you look at the generation of our children, 30s, 20s, even some early 40s, the things that was demanded of us, we did not pass on to our children. There's a lack of God consciousness. On Sunday morning, we got up, it was mandatory that we go to church. It was mandatory that we have a sense of God. If you embraced the Islamic faith, you went to the mosque on Friday. And I think as a result of that, not carrying on the traditions of us as a people, it also has injected a decline of the moral fiber of our community. These children don't have a sense of value, don't have a sense of life. You asked Chief Lovely about the recidivism. In part, it is due to the system, the way the system is designed. Once you're in the system, for instance, there's a great disparity when you look at the different types of convictions. And you can attest to this, Chief Lovely. If you are convicted of a drug, crime, the way the law is 4 strikes against you. You can't vote, you can't live in public housing, you can't receive financial assistance, and you cannot receive any type of money for education. So when a person comes out, what do? In our community, we have no jobs, we have no companies, we have nothing that we can really look to in regards to the economy of our own community. Us that are 50 and over, if you grew up in this town, when we grew up in Paterson, the primary Latino ethnic group was Puerto Ricans. Now, we laughed at that. I grew up in 12th Avenue, 22nd Street, went to school 3rd King, did all of that. And we used to laugh at certain families, because used to say, we cracked on, we'd say they take shifts to go to sleep. You'd have 20 in a 3-room apartment. But we didn't understand that it was just a matter of time. We were ignorant of the fact, that they were working a plan. When I left in 73 to go into the military and came back late 76, most of those Jewish merchants that were on Broadway, that was on 12th Avenue, was on 11th Avenue and 10th Avenue, once they did the flight, I just automatically thought that it would be us that would assume those positions. It wasn't us. It wasn't even the Puerto Ricans. Most of them are of Dominican descent, who own most of the bodegas, who own most of the businesses in our community. And we get mad at that, but where's our plan? Who's guiding us? Who's leading us? We're fragmented on any little issue. We can't support one another. So you're talking about having conversation. This is good, but I think that we need to know that out of this conversation, where are we going with this? You talk about Jamaicans, you talk about Caribbeans, you talk about the African Americans, you talk about even the Africans, the little small minority group of Africa. None of us can come together, or we have not come together to eliminate the ignorance, so we can come together for the common good. If Paterson is going to be a better town, a better city, it's going to start with us in this room, and we have to become united and put aside our differences.
Mr. B?
Good evening. Good evening. My challenge to the city of Paterson has been pretty widespread. I've talked to several individuals that I felt that was somewhat out of touch with the older folk, if I must say, the older folk. Not to challenge the young folk, but the respectful part, as Pastor Kirkendall said, that they don't even want to hear about the past anymore. These are some of the encounters that I've had with individuals, working to somewhat be a guidance for someone. Stay in school, do the best you can, keep God forward before you do anything and everything, because He is the answer. They're even starting to rebel in a sense. If everyone would understand what I'm saying, they're even starting to rebel against the principles of commandments. And I believe that these pressures that Reverend Kirkendall was speaking of, and the presence of the officer here, and speaking to other people within the educational system, it's a crush, sort of like a crush on our young. And we have to see this, because it's not the challenge of rushing to the corners and telling them that they shouldn't be doing what they're doing, but we have to understand the crush that they're feeling from survival. I don't think that it's all because of the older versus the young. They're not perceiving or receiving the right directions. They're being crushed before they even get started, because it could be a lack of some of this and some of that. But by the time they get the 3 to 4 strikes, or I guess, they're crushed. They have no direction. If we reach for them, how do we reach for them? We have to find these resources. I don't know everything, but I've spoken to a few people from education, a few people from the reverend areas, and dealing with my own fatherhood, dealing with the commandments first, and the existence of God, who kept me thus far. Yes, we have to come together as a whole. We are divided. The communication level, there is no communication level. If it is, it needs to be widened. Okay, pretty much that.
Written games. A little surprised.
Why not? Why not?
We go back a long way. What's your perspective on this?
I understand. Yes. My perspective on all this, probably a couple people already know what I'm going to say. I understand everything that's been said this afternoon, I really do. And I know we're all sincere about seeing our community grow and improve. But from what I see, I think the meetings that we need to be talking about is the meetings of taking action. I've heard a couple of people say there's a disconnect with the young community. Some people are on this, or Facebook, some people are on this and that. I know for a fact you can link all of those social sites at one time. I can go to Facebook and be over Twitter, LinkedIn, they're all at the same time, with the same idea. The organization is what I think should be the most critical part of getting something done. It's been my experience that people do not react or take anything seriously unless you show that you have value. And as long as we have all these different organizations coming together to have meetings, but we're not taking action, there's no value. There's no value, nothing's going to get done. We've got a vehicle that has national value, and we don't have to be, and I'm not saying that the NAACP is the vehicle to be in because I'm a part of it or other people are members of it, I'm saying that that's an established organization, nationally, statewide. You come into our city, if you spent time building that organization up with not just membership, I'm talking about the people that run all the different organizations in Paterson. If they were inside of one organization, there's power there. There's political power there, there's economic power there, and I'm not gonna say infighting, I'm gonna say the challenging of different personalities.
Go ahead.
The challenging of different personalities can always be worked out inside an organization where no one else outside has to see that.
Right.
Because when people look outside in and don't see strife going on, I mean, there's communities, there's people out there looking at us right now saying, don't worry about that. Because the meeting they're having today, they had 10 years ago. The meeting that they have today, they're gonna have that same meeting 20 years from now, 10 years from now. Because our culture dictates that that's how we're gonna act. We're not focusing on value more than anything else. Racism, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, yeah, I understand it's racism, but I don't look at it as racism. Because I figured if there were no racism, there'd be something else for somebody not liking me for. So I just go past racism. I know who I'm dealing with. But if I give that person value, guess what? They still do business with me. Go figure that.
That's true.
Yeah, so when we have these types of meetings, we should be it's my opinion, we should be thinking about getting together and putting an organization through that just speaks as one voice. Because now everybody politically, economically, they'll look at that and they'll go, well, we're not gonna be able to get our agenda through if we're not working with this organization. And because we all affect so many people. You know, the head of the brothers affects a lot of people. Masons, they affect a lot of people. Pastors, they affect a lot of people. And that's the kind of thinking that we should start doing because value pays off. I mean, it just pays off. If you give value to young people, they will move forward in a direction because they believe in what you're doing. I saw a recent website of someone in an organization where the young men come through that organization with some type of a tie. You have to wear a tie all the time as a show of how you are as a man. I saw a website where it was nothing but African American brothers, businessmen, you know, professionals, just brothers, all looking exactly the same. And that was a site that I identified with immediately, and I didn't even know what they were about. But the fact of what they showed, I mean, that's how I think we should start thinking. That's just my opinion. That's how I think we should start thinking because people pay attention to you and they'll listen to your agenda if what you've got going on represents value in the community.
And let me say this, Mr. Parker, that's why we have asked various personalities and mindsets to come to these planning committees. Because these are just planning committees for the actual thing. Because no one has the answer. No one. We all believe we have the answer. And if we did have the answer, we would not be sitting in this room today. There's quite a bit of what you said that I can embrace immediately. Because I don't care what you do in your life or your community, if you don't see value to it, you don't gravitate towards it. Mr. Parchman, Dr. Hodges.
Hello, my name is Robert Parchman. I'm a plumbing contractor, business owner. I've been in business for myself since 1984. I work basically in New York. I work a lot of schools, construction. When I look at our city, I began to get very upset about what's taking place here in our town. I've always worked in New York. I live on East 38th Street, Route 2080, boom to New York, back home. When I look at our town, I think the infrastructure is here to rebuild this city and make it much larger than what it was. I look at the city's budget. I look at the Board of Education's budget. Well, last year was $500 million for the Board of Education or higher. The city's budget, the garbage contract is not $9 million. I'm looking at all these different contracts, and then I'm looking at how these contracts are being awarded at the city council meeting and no one there represents us. I believe the key to change is the way when my family came here. My father is from Jamaica, my mother is from the US. My father was a carpenter, my mother was a seamster. How they made changes and was able to buy their house in the early 70s is because they had a trade and they were able to generate income. And that empowered them to empower their children. I think we've gotten away from that. We've been distracted, or we're running around like hamsters in a wheel, not accomplishing anything. I think we need to focus on our cities like Paterson, Newark, Detroit. I just wish we as black people, whatever skills, whatever profession that we have, if we could just come together on a couple of agendas. With that bond that just passed, there should have been some things in there that assured that we work the community, to assure jobs and contract opportunities. Any other city, a Hispanic company or a black company is not going to Fairlawn and get a major contract. It's just not going to happen, low bidder or not. It's not going to happen. You're not going to go to Inglewood's Cliffs. So I believe the change should be in job opportunities and contract opportunities, services. We need to gain control of the money in our town and make it work for us. We as black people, what does that mean? We have to start to organize to vote. We have to go into the communities that we don't even want to go to. We pulled up here and some of the guys that's sitting at the park, I was like, yo, if I have my 9mm, there's no way I'm getting out of my car, walking down that street. That's crazy. It shouldn't be that way. But if it starts with the church and other churches all banding together and other organizations banding together to try to bring some change and to vote the same way each time, I think we can make change here. We have the infrastructure here, we have the elder wisdom here, we have young people here, and we can bring change. And I want to be a part of that. I brought my son for the sole purpose so he can hear and see what's going on. Some of the conversations we had this morning, I said, you ride down Broadway in Manhattan and where Malcolm X was assassinated, most black people don't even know the building. They ride by it all the time. They have no idea that's where Malcolm X was assassinated. There's properties, we were just riding down Graham Avenue, I was showing them buildings and businesses that were there that we would go to. Joe's Liquor Store was on Graham Avenue. It was a liquor store, but it was a black-owned business, and he was the only one. This deli that was there. It's just so many things that we have lost, but I believe collectively, if we can come together, put away the differences, discuss the problems in private, like Mr. Gaines said, and now's the time. It's where we watch, we go to the city council meetings, we see what happens, we see how other organizations and people have mounted together to push their own agenda. The closing of the stores, it was the Dominicans on one side, and it was the black community on the other side. Dominicans are making the money, and a lot of the store owners, they don't live here, so they don't care. Their kids aren't in our school, they're not in the neighborhood, and who says people on 10th Avenue who live in those apartments over all that madness is not entitled to a decent life? And 12 o'clock to close the store, everybody's fussing. I mean, what could you possibly do if it doesn't shut down till 1 o'clock? What are you going to do the next day? What kind of life could you have? What are your children experiencing? So we have to come together collectively, put down our differences, what everyone can bring to the table, any skill set, business, experience, and just do it organized and bring change. And if it has to be at one neighborhood at a time and bring everything together, then so be it. But we need to start moving the ball. We need to start moving the ball now. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Just one quick example. The road paving, road resurfacing, got voted on, right? And the vote was 4-3 or
6-3.
6-3.
6 in favor.
6 in favor. I called one of the councilmen before this evening went on. I said, listen, you have to vote to get this thing done, all right? I'm not into knowing how you're gonna get it done, but you have to vote to pave the streets, to get the streets paved, period, end of story. Everybody wants it, everybody. Church people want it, regular people, everybody wants it. I mean, robbers, thieves, everybody wants it.
Trying to get away.
Yeah, everybody wants it. You need to vote, and you know what? You need to vote unanimously, because this is a project that no one is against. They're just not against it. You should vote, all be in favor, all as one council will vote for it. Then we go back and forth, okay, it votes against through 6-3. There's 3 people that didn't vote for it. And you know why they didn't vote for it? Because they knew it was gonna pass. This is the thinking that you're dealing with. They knew it was gonna pass, so I'll vote against it, because if there's something that goes wrong with it or messed up, I'm not attached to it. That's the type of elected official you do not need. You see, that's the thinking that goes on. You gotta look at what's going on in our city. If 9 people vote in favor of it, and there's issues with it, but there's issues with anything like that.
Right.
So, but everybody wants it. So when someone says they're voting against it, as a voter, you gotta start saying to yourself, wait a minute, did I put you in office to do what I'm asking you to do? Or did I put you in office to do my thinking for me? All right, that's the power. Now, when you have an organization, one organization, all these different organizations feed in. That one organization says, at the city council meeting, I am expecting all of you to vote in favor for whatever. Watch what happens then.
You know, there's a difference. Pressure.
That's the type of thing I'm saying.
No, let Carlos get in there, I'll let you come back. Carlos. I'm trying to give everybody an opportunity to say something before I start bringing seconds. Carlos.
As I get older, it's harder to hold on to a thought. But
It's easy for you, young man.
yeah, it used to be. I'm not from Paterson. I'm not from the South. I'm born and raised, no, I was born in New York City. And I've been in this city for about 27 years now. Most of my life, actually. When I first came here, your schools had 39% Latino population. It's now 61%. It's not your schools anymore. You had the majority of the population, not anymore. You had some businesses, and you're losing those. Now, we're running out of time, is what I'm trying to say to you, rather quickly. You're running out of time. I don't like coming to meetings like this because I don't like, my public persona is that I have to take care of everybody. Which is why I'm a little nervous about this camera, because when we hold our meetings, we don't keep, what's the word? Confidentiality at all. And so all our business, all of our plans get out into the street. I remember a so-called black meeting a while ago that I say that didn't go 3 days before somebody from the senator's office was calling me to ask me about the meeting that they had heard. Like they don't think it didn't last 3 days. Now that's a problem, because if you're planning to do anything, if you put your plans out in the street, your plans will be sabotaged. Now, some of the problems that you talked about, they didn't just happen. And it's not just about racism. We represent at least $4 billion in terms of an economy. At least. But we don't own that. We spend that money, and you're being targeted. Why do your kids think that they hate each other when before it was brother, and hugging each other? And why? Because your music tells you that the person that looks like you is your enemy, that you got to hurt, that you got. That's the first thing you got to prove to him, that you're not a punk. You got to step on him and, in some of the vernacular, bust his head to the white meat. That's a quote. And your children look at each other that way. Who buys the record? Because they don't have any jobs, so where do they get the money from? Us. We're financing this self-destruction. We don't ask any questions about what our children are doing. I grew up in a time where, like someone said before, you could not disrespect your parents. You could, it was unthinkable. I remember seeing a video of a young white child smacking his mother on television. And they had reaction films of black people who were putting it on, and when the child smacked the mother, people just they were in a state of shock. But that's all changed. So what I'm saying is, you need to really look at what is happening. Some portion of your conversation needs to be why these things are happening. Because the destruction of the black family is just not something that's happening by mistake.
Right. It's not.
But it's not just racism. Now, I don't worry about he doesn't like me or he's being racist. I don't have time for that. I've encountered more racism right here in this city in my professional life than I have ever, well, mostly, than I did in most of my life. So, but I want to associate my remark with Mr. Gaines said. We can't just talk to talk. I mentioned to you very clearly that before, I don't have time for that. I want to state the problem, and then let's focus on how we get those problems solved as quickly as possible. But stating the problem is important. But we must get to, we need to do this, that, establish that list as soon as possible. Because we have had this conversation over and over again, and like I said, 39% of the population is now 61. And you're losing more, people are heading back down south at a rapid rate and all look like us. And we're going to be losing this city faster and faster. So we don't have much time. Thank you.
Okay, Councilman, real quick before we start, and then our host will come in. Do you have something to say to us?
Well, even though it's more of the same talk, I think it is important that we begin to talk. My sense is that the dialogue this time is a little bit different, and I understand all of the issues and the things that affect us, and I think racism is a big part of that. We can't see it and say it that way, but the structural changes that happen affect us more significantly than other folk. Now, you talk about the migration and the influx of folks that own businesses. If you don't own, if you don't invest in yourself, if you don't have a business, you're always relegated to be consumers. And that's where we are. People see us as a market for just to be consumers, to wear the sneakers, throw the ball, dance and shake. And as long as we do that, they're comfortable because we're paying that money. We talk about the road we're paving, and I'm sorry, Mr. Gaines left, but it wasn't that we didn't want our roads repaved or potholes fixed. But that's not the most critical issue that we face. And $35 million in services alone to somebody that doesn't live in Paterson, doesn't look like you, one of those big companies, at the end of the day, all you have.
There's a silver Nissan that's probably parked improperly, which means that you disrespected the rules, which is part of our problem as a people. Needs to be moved. P94DLM, a silver Nissan, somebody's got to get out.
All right.
Thank you.
So that wasn't the issue, and quite frankly, that resolution probably wasn't gonna pass. Because once the alternative was put out there, it wasn't defensible anymore. The reason that resolution passed is that we lobbied and negotiated and struck an arrangement to massage that into more than just a repaving circumstance. So Parchman and I have had some conversations, and if you spend $35 million and you don't hire one person, that's a problem. So by incorporating the DPW garbage collection piece in the package, and from beefing up and identifying the DPW is an economic engine and a driver, and to make that into an enterprise division as opposed to just an expense on the city, that's what turned that situation around. Arturuzaman, and I call names, because it is what it is.
Tell it.
Arturuzaman is linked in with a certain leadership, and he thinks Andre walk on water and can fly. So he wasn't gonna budge, and he's worried about his seat. And that's what happened when you don't have integrity. If you're just looking about yourself, you're gonna be frozen in time. If you're worried about the next election, you can't really serve. You've got to be willing to give up your life or give up your seat in order to do the right thing. And he's worried about his seat, so he wasn't gonna vote for it. Andre still is wondering how he lost the election.
That's right.
And so he's never gonna vote for anything in this administration, period.
That's right.
And Tavares ain't gonna vote for anything
That's right.
that Andre isn't voting for anyway. So those three was almost in a lock, and we didn't have a whole lot of conversation with them. This administration recognizes, as all political systems, recognizes power. The Bengalis walk up into Paterson and say, we got 1,000 votes, and we're gonna put it where we want to put it, and it's going to make the difference. And everybody responds to them. Everybody kowtows to them in this. I think we have a little bit more than 1,000 votes. But the fact is, we don't speak with one voice. And we all always have to agree on everything, and we will not agree on everything. We're never going to get that. But we can agree on a certain agenda. We can have a voice and a purpose. And if we do that, we can put together and make some things happen. What we're saying is, we should be able to walk up into City Hall and make some demands of the system to respond to our needs in the way we want it to be responded to. And we have the ability to do that. We're still sitting on the council with a good number of folks that look like us. And don't wait around, because it ain't gonna be long before you don't have that either. My nephew and a firefighter's son were 1 and 2 or 2 or 1 in the state on the test. There are 3 tests that they give you. One is a written test. Second is a physical test, exertion. And the third is something that qualifies for teamwork. Okay? Now, our kids can pass the written test. His did, and number 1 or 2 was number 1 or 2 in the physical. Fell down on the 3rd test. Okay? Now the 3rd test is like the psychological test they used to give you for the police department. It's where we go to fail. Okay? And why they failed on the 3rd test? Because they ask you firefighters type questions, which you don't have a clue about because you weren't around the dinner table with the daddy who's a captain or a sergeant talking about those issues. So they asked you one question. If they put you on a hose in the corner and you see the other firefighter on the ladder and the ladder is shifting and he's gonna fall, will you leave your hose and run over and grab the ladder? What will most of you say?
Yes.
Leave your hose and go grab the ladder, right? Wrong. Wrong. You stay at your post and let who's ever responsible for whatever worry about that. That's no intelligence. That can be taught. That's no job capacity issue. That's just an operational issue that can be taught. But they put that in there so that if you look at the last graduating class, when I went over to Union Avenue And I look at the line, and I'm going like, I've been in Paterson almost 40 years. I can't recognize none of these faces, except 3 or 4. Who's your mama? Who's your father? Captain DeVoe? Lieutenant Grove? So 15 out of the 18 had a connection to the fire department.
Right.
And didn't grow up in Paterson.
And didn't grow up in Paterson.
Don't live in
I'm gonna bust your brain now, because I like to bring truth to it.
Against the law.
Terry Duffy, great friend of mine, love him, owned a bar down there. How long has Terry Duffy lived in West Milford? Forever, right? And all his sons, they live in West Milford. And they graduated from West Milford High. Okay? Now, how in the world, all 3 of them are in the Paterson Fire and Police Department? And you have to live in Paterson to get on the department.
Right.
How does that work? Because grandmama had a house on Governor Street and still own it. And we say all 10 of us live in that one room in Governor. Now who go check? Captain Duffy. And he said, oh yeah, they live here. Okay, now I was up on a little bit from Hopper, 1 block from Hopper, which is 1 block from Prospect Park, at a Habitat house, and I happened to strike up a conversation with a guy next door. He goes, oh yeah, I'm a volunteer in Helden, firefighter, but I'm looking to get on the Paterson Fire Department. Oh. Yeah, so I moved here, 1 block from Prospect Park, to qualify when I take the test that I live in Paterson. Me and my buddies share this house, and we'll qualify, we take the test, and we get on, and the next day we can move out, and that's how it goes. So, unless we fix those structural problems, say to the mayor, whoever it is, Joey, we're gonna start, we can't do nothing about it yesterday, but we're gonna start now.
Right.
Let's fix this stuff so that Donnie Evans, tell my kids that are getting out of high school, go take the stupid civil service test for the fire department and the police department. Whether you want to be a cop or a fireman, I don't care. You take the test.
That's right.
Fill up the list. So when we look at the list, we are on there. Okay? And then say to everybody, if you don't meet every iota of the qualification, we ain't calling you. And when we come to check you, you better be a bona fide resident or we're going to fail you. Sue me. So structural stuff have some difficulty. Most of the folks that work for our school district don't come from Paterson. And Paterson, Mr. Hodges, Dr. Hodges, seems to hire less Paterson people than Newark. Newark hires a lot of Paterson students to be teachers, and I know a couple of them. We don't seem to be able to hire our own. We rather hire somebody from Wayne or wherever else they come from, but we don't hire the same people we train. So unless we work on some of those things, we can't do it. The neighborhood stabilization is coming up. That's the next big item. With over 1,000 empty properties to be redeveloped and rebuilt. We can't afford to let that go by. And it can't be just, let's bundle these and give them to an outside developer it can't be that. The idea ought to be, let us look at our neighborhood. And what's in our neighborhood? Churches and faith-based. Work with the church and the faith-based and the developer to redevelop our neighborhood using local resources from Paterson, local people from Paterson, and have a training program. Forget about this project labor thing, and go to the strict union. No, we're going to have to go offline and treat some people how to be house wiring for electrician, how to nail a nail, how to refill a porch, sidewalk repair across the board. You know how many masons we could produce? And how much money you could make? I'm sorry for going the circular, but why we were successful, our parents were successful, they made their own economy.
That's right.
Okay? I know a deacon from my church, Deacon Cole. He couldn't necessarily nail a board straight, but he was a the repairman, plumber, handyman, a contractor. I look at some of this stuff, I shake my head. But he made a living. He sent his 3 children to college, because he had that sign, Coke and Son. And you may argue, but he's a plumber. He'd be there all day. But All trades. We walk away from business. We walk away from owning. Okay? What does it take to open up a tire shop in Paterson? A lot, a little garage, and a thing, and some tires, some used tires. We have more tire shops. I was coming up 12th Avenue, and there was 1, 2, 3 tire shops on a 4-corner spot. May very well be, okay? But we can do some things by getting into business and catering to ourselves. We got more churches, and if we focus on opening 1 bodega, we could do that tomorrow. Sunday, we're gonna collect $1,000 from each, $300, put by 10, that's $3,000, and open 1 business, and make that happen. Force the system to respond to our need, remove those structural barriers where our children can get jobs. That's why I objected and I have concern about just paying somebody. DPW can be the rehabilitation of all of those people coming off the corner. You've been convicted of a crime, you had a gun charge, you had a drug charge, you can't go work with babies, you can't work in the bank, you can't work in the shop, you can't work in government, you can't work in the schools, but you can work in DPW. You can cut trees, you can fix, repair sidewalks, you can pothole patch, you can get your CDL, you can get a, what do they call it, major equipment operator position, and you can move on. There are things that we can do, but as we've been said, we have to be purpose about it and focus on it. We say our people can't do this and can't do that. I tell them at City Hall, forget about it. Paterson has about 12 black folk that work for the Department of Transportation in this Northeast, and that might be 100% of the black people that work for DOT. You hear what I just said? And all of those 12 people came out of 1 contact. 2 black folk, Jamaicans, met a white guy on the highway that was broken down, helped him out, fix his car, and get him back on the road. The guy say, here's my card, if you ever need a job, call me. He was an executive in DOT. Those 2 people got hired, those 2 people referred 2 people, those 2 people referred 2 people, those 2 people referred 2, and now you got about 12 people from that 1 contact that work for DOT, and they're the only black people that work for DOT in the Northeast. And you don't have to be highly intelligent. In fact, they're the most intelligent people in the DOT crew that they work with. Because white privilege carries certain privileges. Yeah. You don't have to be bright to be employed in the white community.
Right.
You can be the guy wrecks a truck, turn it over, damn it, and he still have the job. Why? Because he's white, and the assistant director recommended him. So we want to be qualified, and we have to be super qualified. You don't have to be all that qualified. The best paver on that crew is my son. He's black, and he lives in Paterson. So we have quality people. We just have to be willing to put them in place and to do what we have to do. And we worry about our own selves sometimes. Let us now collectively make some demands. Make some demands for our contribution. To our Democratic Party, let's make some demands.
That's right. That's right.
Okay? We've been there, we've done that. Let's now make some demands. I see the mayor just appointed 3 judges. 1 from the Middle East community, 1 Hispanic, and there's a white guy in there somewhere? Yeah, Italian guy.
He's mixed it.
Okay, he mixed it in, all right? The Middle Eastern people made their demands from last time around. We're going to support you, but we want a judge. They say we want no DPW job. That was on the table from the last cycle. We're going to support you, but we want a judge. And they were dead serious about it. What do we want? All right. So now we need to make some demand. Yep, the final thing I'm going to say is quality and integrity is now gone the way of the dodo bird when it comes to elections in Paterson.
Yes, sir.
Okay? We got to change that. We got to change that at least among ourselves. Stand up, Dr. Hardy. This man is the most intelligent, hard-working that is sincere and will speak his mind on an issue. He may not always be right, but you don't know what he's saying. You're going to know what he's thinking, and he's going to have the courage of his conviction to say it. That man should not be worried about getting reelected. He shouldn't be worried about getting reelected. And the last cycle, when I saw Mr. Domingo Mendez got the largest vote, Domingo Alex Mendez got the largest vote in the city of Paterson, and my good friend, who has worked tenaciously, Ken Morris, as a qualified, high-performing member of the council. People, when I say that's the guy I'm going to vote for, people chuckled at me. At a Black Forum meeting. That's wrong. That's got to change. If we don't value ourselves, and if we don't value quality, and people that are really moving us forward, and we prefer other people over our own folks, I'm not talking somebody that's shucking and jiving. I'm talking somebody that's contributing. If you don't value them and support them, then we've got a major problem. So we've got a limited number of time now to change, but I think the time is right. We have an awakening of our consciousness, and we still have an ability to demand some things. And the things to look for right now is that neighborhood stabilization development, the expansion of DPW in a meaningful way, and the involvement in city government and the directions that we take, and impacting on our school system in a more direct way to begin to produce some quality. I love the superintendent, but at times I think he's a little bit timid, and I think he allows the surrounding to box him in. And we got to know how to, and he has come away from his message. When I heard him when he was coming, what he was going to do and how he was going to engage community, I was big on that, but I haven't seen that. I haven't seen him engage in the leadership. I haven't seen him speaking out. The superintendent's job is to change the tenor of the conversation about education in the town. I don't hear his voice. I don't hear his voice. He lives in Paterson, but I don't hear his voice. He has to speak to more than just the people in the school system. He's got to speak to the community. And School 6 over there, finally, School 6 is one of the bigger challenges that we have. And if we can do it at School 6, we can do it anywhere. And School 6 is going to take more than people in the school to make that happen. We're going to have to engage people around School 6 and outside of School 6 in a way that tells kids that we value them, we support them, and treat the obstacles in their way in order for School 6 to be successful. I see Councilwoman Cotton has a hand up.
No, the reason why, when you started talking about School 6, and I have been trying to be part of School 6 for quite a while now, and I said to them, I've gone to the homeschool council meeting, and I said, until you parents and community members come out in force, you gotta come out in force. You can't send me down there and 2 people standing next to me. I need 50 people with me when we go down in force. And he said in the newspaper where he mentioned my name, which he hasn't reached out to me yet. He mentioned my name, but he has not reached out to me that he wanted me to be part of who they're gonna bring in there. And we still have not had a say so in that. So when I talked to the parents, I just went there to a meeting, and and I reached out to the superintendent again several times. And like you said, Councilman McCoy, he's not in the community. Dr. Evans is not in the community, he doesn't come out, you know, in order for something to succeed, he has to be part of it, and he has to want the community, whether it's a parent or community member. I mean, back in the day, in leadership teams, you were part of selecting who came into a school. I don't care what. You cannot no longer sit back, and I say to parents, and not have nothing to say about who's going to be in charge of your children. So hopefully we can still reach out to him, and hopefully he will still consider. If he's not, we got to make him, like he said, demand. When you don't demand nothing, you get nothing. And I learned that. You don't ask for nothing, you know, he might say no, then I got to go to another person. And that one might say no, I still got to go to somebody else. But as long as they see persistency, then they'll see that, okay, well, these people are serious here around School 6. I'm not letting this keep going on and keep going on. So I just had to mention School 6, and I see our parent coordinator here.
Yeah.
Yes. Very nice.
Are you ready for us? You still listening? Commissioner?
Well, let me start off by saying, because this meeting is about the black condition in Paterson, and I listened quite a bit, and I heard Mr. Gaines talked about leadership. Let me start by saying that I recognize a few things. That our black community is not a monolithic group of people. We're all different in some ways. But the ways in which we are different does not make us necessarily apart from each other. We have to develop new ways, new strategies to address our situation. First of all, we learn to identify ourselves by our nationality. Yes, I was born in Jamaica, and that becomes the overarching thing about my person. Okay, I went to this university, and that becomes the overarching thing about who I am. Yes, I belong to this church, and it becomes the overarching thing that I am. But that's not the real purpose. There is something on Facebook that says you unfriend somebody. I think we need, as a community, to unlearn some of the things that we have learned over these many years. We need to develop an attitude. We are not going to support mediocrity. We are not going to support mediocrity. We are not going to support a political party because we are registered in that political party. We need to say, I'm going to support a person based on the person's ability to deliver, the person's ability to understand the issues, the person's ability to dissect the problems and bring solutions to the table. Those are some of the things that we need to deal with as we develop this new approach in how we address the real issues of our community. I would like to see us be more involved in the things that really matters in our community. Education does matter. We need to have more dialogue. Decisions are made without discussions. Major decisions are made without any discussion in our community. And that have a way of coming back, boomerang, back to us and impact us in very serious ways. We need to address all of these issues. We need to have leadership that forces us to discuss the issues and bring solutions to the table and make sure that those solutions that are brought to the table are seriously looked at and executed and implemented. So my purpose here is for us to talk about the house. We know the issues. We don't need to just talk about it. We need to bring the house to the table. And I'm here, I'm committed to working with whatever group it is. You know, I want to thank you, Reverend Clayton, because I realize that a lot of our churches, a lot of our pastors are so divorced from what we do here. But from I've been in this town over 30 years, I've been in this town longer than anywhere else that I've ever been in my life. I've experienced Reverend Clayton is always there in the forefront. You know, opening his church, there sitting, he's willing to hear you on some of these vital issues that our community faces from day to day. I was very happy that the councilman mentioned we have a school board election coming up. I'm a member of the Paterson School Board for the last 9 years. I've worked very hard. But although I've worked hard, I've not seen another person work as hard as Dr. Hodges, Commissioner. Yet we have forces in this town because he's outspoken, would like to unseat him. We should never allow, or we should not allow that to happen. I see you standing. Is that my signal?
Yeah, you know how this works. Who came in a little late, which I'll deal with you later on, is the president of the St. County Civic League, Linda Gallo-Short. You know where we're going with this.
Yes.
So would you like to say a couple words?
Yeah, I just want to say I'm glad to see some real community leaders out on the floor. I'm glad to see people in high places, because we are in the right places, but we are not using those places to pull our communities together. We got to do better at networking. I'm looking to support qualified individuals. I'm tired of us going with the fact that they're black and they're popular. I'm not going to be a part of that. I don't mean to speak out against my people, but if you're not in the right place and you don't have the qualifications, we need to be able to speak out to those individuals and say, you just don't have those qualifications. We're not going to support you. Meanwhile, you're getting in the way of another good candidate that is capable. We got to stop going with the status quo, and I just see that over and over again. A lot of us are in positions where there's board seats available, council people that have other seats on boards, on municipal boards. Why haven't we been chosen to be on those boards? We got to start pulling each other up. Any opportunity where we can sit, we should be there. We got to go back to the old way. We got to start coming back into the church and demanding the accountability and leadership. The problem is our community does not have a head. It's a bunch of people, a bunch of body, but we got to put a head to this. We got to get behind one person, and I know we keep saying that's impossible, but we are going to have to get down to 1 or 2 people that are going to call the ranks. We can't have everybody shooting off here and there. If you look at the Latino community, you know who the heads are. There's 2 of them. And when he says go, they go. That's how we got to get. You know, you say one person can't do it all, but Malcolm was one person. Martin was one person. Gandhi was one person. It takes one person with good leadership to lead. We got to become more followers and good warriors, soldiers. We got to level the playing field, and we got to get that one voice out in front. And we have to learn to keep it within our community and not. You know, I hope nobody goes out and say, oh, you know who was at the meeting, they were talking about that. There's nothing wrong with us talking about us.
Right.
You know, you shouldn't feel guilty and we shouldn't be ashamed. This is where we started in the church. We came here and we pretended that we were talking church issues, but we were talking education. We knew how to do it. And I said that when I hear about this Abbott program where you can't teach the children this, you can't teach them that. Yes, you can. And when the wrong person comes in that door, you flip it right back up like we used to do. We got to start taking every opportunity to teach our children and get them in position. And we got to learn to support one another. When we have something, show up. Just show up. We don't look serious enough. We got to start backing each other. So I'm here. I'm hoping that this is not going to be another meeting. Because again, I said I'm not about a bunch of meetings. We're actually going to move forward, come up with a plan, put it in place, and let's stick to it. We need to form solidarity. I agree with Board Member Earl Carl. We need to form solidarity. We got to stop letting these little things break us down. I was just talking to somebody about African Descendants Day. Do you know who that would include? Just about everybody in this town. There's only 4 faces on the earth, so if you're not Asian, Caucasian, Indian, then you're deriving from the black man. People need to know where their allegiance is. We don't know who we are as a people. We got to stop creating barriers and come under one umbrella.
You know, we heard the same thing throughout this meeting. Action. The theme has been action. All the talking, and we talk a lot. We're the talkingest people I've ever met in my life. But when it comes down to walking that walk, we get brain dead. So, what's going to happen now, before Mr. Nation comes back up, what's going to happen now is, we're going to come up the matrix. It's going to take us a few minutes, because we've been meeting with various groups and finding out the consensus is the same. I mean, this is your first meeting, right? The meeting before, about the same amount of people, but different faces. So we've gotten around to a lot of people, especially with the space that we've had to bring people in. So this is where I would like to sit. And you guys can tell me, no, that's the wrong way to do it. Because this is a democracy. And what we're doing, this is not a dictatorship. There is no one individual who's going to say, this is how it's going to be. That's when people start gravitating away from the conversation. So let's, first of all, we have a place that we want to do the conference at. And then what we're going to do is by a show of hands, if it's okay with everybody, and let the majority rule on that. We need to come up before we leave out here today with 3 or 4 issues that we're going to address at this first mini conference. And we will have breakout rooms where those groups can go, have conversations, and then come back into the conference. The press will not be allowed to film or report on our entire conference. And we invite them in, we'll be at the end when certain things are being said that we want them to hear. The worst thing in the world to do is to let, and I agree with Dr. Hodges, you can't plan if you go on the street corner and put it up on the blackboard. They don't do it, we shouldn't be doing it. And I use the word they vigorously. Okay? There is nothing wrong with us having this type of conversation. There is nothing wrong with us coming up with strategies, but we need to do this, and we need to do this yesterday. The lives of our children depend on it. Our survival in this city depends on it. Different from Newark, those brothers and sisters over there work in unison.
That's right, yeah.
They will support black business. They say who their black elected officials want to be. They support the church. They support the civic groups. They support their blacks that are in law enforcement. We are so backwards after being the individuals in this particular corridor to begin the process of prosperity. Do we continuously have our meetings and talk about it, or is everyone in this room committed to doing something about it? And I'd like to hear, are you committed?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to let Mr. Britt Nation come up. We're going to come up with the basic idea of the issues, and we can't cover every issue in this mini conference. We need to take 3 or 4. Design and education, I don't care what anybody says, got to be one. Okay? He's going to write down the suggestions. We're going to vote on them real quick because the Reverend has given us the church, and I'm not going to get beat up later on when y'all are going.